VAR, Brendon Rodgers. These are the two things which are under the cosh this week. Hello and welcome to Right From the Kickoff. I'm your host, William Bayliss, and as always, we're talking to a very disgruntled Joseph Wright. How are you doing this week, Joe?
Yeah, I'm not okay, mate. just not okay. I am fully enraged and ready to go with this podcast because you're probably going to see a side of me that many of our listeners won't have seen before. Because not happy at all.
But before we get into this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and follow us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And Joe will be posting another video on TikTok sharing his thoughts even further on the whole Brendon Rodgers scenario. So that's bound to get a bit of traction, won't it, Joe?
Yeah, for sure. So
let's get started then. Brendon Rodgers. Are you in the he should stay camp or are you in the he should leave camp? Because that's another loss against Brighton.
He's got to leave. I'm sorry. I've had enough. I'm very tolerant with managers. I am. But I just he's got to leave, hasn't he? I mean, we talked about it briefly last week, and you hold out hope as a fan. But he's playing players out of position. He's coming out and saying what he's saying in press conferences. He clearly doesn't want to be at the club. Although it's been reported that it will cost the club 10 million to sack him, which I feel is why he's keeping his job. As it's been widely reported, we are in a very bad financial position in terms of Premier League club anyway. I wouldn't say we're in dire straits. We're not, but we just can't invest in the club as heavily as we would like to, and we can't even get rid of a manager. But here's my question to you, Will, and to all of our listeners. If your club was in the same state as Leicester, what I want to know is if the roles were reversed and Forest were Leicester, and Steve Cooper was Brendon Rodgers, would you be saying, yes, it's 10 million. I understand we're not in the financial position to perhaps spend that, but if we end up going down or we end up ticking over another 5 results and don't pick up any results, it's going to cost us a hell of a lot more in the long run because we need to stay in the Premier League.
You know what? I've got a question for you. Do you think it's all down to Brendon Rodgers, or do you think because of financial situation, Brendon Rodgers is frustrated because he can't sign the players he wants or any players, and the squad is a shadow of what it used to be, which Brendon Rodgers did say himself. Do you think the blame's all down on Brendon Rodgers?
I think 90% of it has to be down to Rodgers. For me personally,
you think so?
I understand it starts with top. I understand it all starts with top, but
starts at the top.
He understands. We had. Let me just lay it down for you, Will. Right, we had a game against United. Obviously, lost that 1-0. Before the game, in the programme notes, there was the reason as to why we were in this financial position, right? Which I can understand, right? Brendon Rodgers then comes out after that game and says what he says. We haven't been supported. We haven't this. We haven't that. Right? You got to remember, last season, Brendon Rodgers was heavily backed in investment. In terms of we brought in Ryan Bertrand, we brought in Vestergaard, we brought in Daka, we brought in Samer, all of which, I think one of them, but 3 of those were Brendon Rodgers' choice to bring in. It's well reported. Well, they were Brendon Rodgers signings, they were Brendon Rodgers' team, and let's be honest, have they hit the ground running? They're on big wages. They're not Premier League players, or they haven't proven themselves, right? So if you're telling me, well, yeah, he hasn't really had the investment. Well, he did last year, and none of the signings that he brought in set the league alight, did they? Do you know what I mean? So you can sit there and say, Brendon Rodgers, he hasn't had the investment. He's lost his best centre-back. Which a guy, by the way, we have replaced him with somebody in Fars. Wow, we have replaced him, but he didn't even have a visa for the game. Like, that's not Brendon Rodgers' fault. I'm not laying that at his door. But there's just so many things going wrong with the club at the moment.
I think. How about the head of recruitment who's just came in after the window closed? So you went through the whole summer without a head of recruitment.
I don't know. I get it from because we got him from Southampton, so I get it from Southampton's point of view. I think there was some legal going ons there in terms of he was still working for Southampton up until a certain point. So of course they don't want him working for us and them at the same time. So I think it was the right thing to do from Southampton's point of view, but. We were told as fans last season, and I made a video on it. I made several videos on it at the end of last season on my own personal TikTok, saying about how it was going to be a big season for transfers, players in, out, and all this sort of stuff. We were told as fans it was going to be a big summer. We were told that we were going to buy players, buy Brendon Rodgers himself. And I thought that him and Top were aligned, so I thought whatever was coming from Brendon Rodgers' mouth has obviously been told by Top, and it's just not materialised. And just on your point, going back to us being stale, Will, and not having enough in terms of answering the questions, you think it's all Brendon Rodgers' fault? I think. He's a manager that wants to get sacked, in my opinion. He's trying to get sacked. He's trying to get that 10 million payoff, which I think is atrocious. I feel like he is playing players out of position. We've got Sionchu sitting on the bench, who, according to Brendon Rodgers, is nowhere near ready and is not good enough. Bear in mind, he was our best.
He doesn't trust him.
Yeah, well, he was our best centre back 2 years ago. He's obviously a centre back that's suffering in confidence, and that's really going to help him, isn't it? And I just feel like playing Ndidi at the back. And don't get me wrong, Ndidi as a makeshift centre back works for 1 or 2 games, but he's not a centre back.
But
do you know what I mean?
You need him at CDM if you're going to play.
Yeah, we do. And I'm just hoping this new centre back, this new lad, obviously who's going to probably start against Villa. I hope he starts against Villa because we need somebody else in that defence. Because the defence against Brighton was honestly, mate. It's the first time that I've properly sat and watched a game this season. I've watched several bits, I've watched several games, but properly sat and watched a game on Sunday. And my God, mate, we were atrocious defensively all over the back. The midfield are not close enough to the defence. The strikers aren't even close enough to the midfield. Like defensively, you just need to be more compact. And I said this last week. To you, didn't I? The guy I want in, if we get rid of Brendon Rodgers, because he will get the sack if we lose to Villa on Saturday. He will.
Yeah, sure.
I think he definitely will. There's or there's going to be serious questions asked. But we will lose against Villa because I have no trust in Brendon Rodgers at the moment at all. So we will lose against Villa. That's I've already marked that down as a loss in my head. The man we need is Sean Dyche. And I've said this, and I'm fully on that side of the fence. And the reason for that is because everyone can say, yeah, but he plays boring football. He plays for 1-0s and stuff. That's exactly what Leicester need at the moment. I don't care. I don't care about us playing fancy flick football and stuff. If we can't keep a clean sheet, there's no point us being able to pass the ball around fancy.
Yeah, but so you want Sean Dyche? Why would Sean Dyche want to come to Leicester at this point if he knows that signings are really hard to come by? What would be the incentives for him to come? Because he'll have a lot of offers soon.
A couple of things. I think one, Leicester with clubs that are looking for managers at the moment. You got Villa potentially and Everton. What I'm saying is we need to try and go for Sean Dyche while we can. I think if the Villa job becomes available or the Everton job becomes available, then he'd be more likely to go to one of those 2 clubs. But I will say this: obviously, Bournemouth looking for a new manager. I think we're a bigger club than Bournemouth. I don't think that's too cheeky for me to say. And I think with the players we've still got, you've got Maddison, you've got the likes of Vardy still, you've got the likes of Tielemans still there. I know he's not signed a contract or anything, but he's still there. You've got good players to work with, and this is what I mean is the players that we've got should not be where they are, and this is how I know that he's lost the dressing room, because as much as people are saying we haven't invested in the squad, I completely understand that. but we are still, with the players we've got, an above 15 side. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen these players play far better than they are doing. And I know they can play football, and I know there's players in there. So for me personally, I think he inherits a better squad than he had when he was at Burnley. He gets an opportunity to potentially manage a bigger club than Burnley on a bigger stage. And to be honest, if he can stabilise the club and get us to finish sort of lower to mid-table this season, then I think the club at the moment is trying to stabilise. I think there will be investment in the future. I do, once the economy gets back up and running in Thailand, and everything kind of, the backlog kind of happens. I feel like there will be investment in the club, and there still is investment going on, obviously, with the training ground and the new expansion. So Leicester are still an attractive proposition, to answer your question, and I think those are the reasons Sean Dyche would be enticed to come to Leicester City. He's definitely a manager who I believe would want to take on the challenge.
Yeah, but only time will tell. So it was up to you right now. You would sack Brendon Rodgers today.
I'd sack him today, and I'd bring Sean Dyche in tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'd already be on the phone today to Sean Dyche and be like, "Look, mate, we're about to sack Brendon. Are you ready for this? We'll get a contract, slap it down on the table, pay you more than you were on at Burnley, because we're overpaying Brendon at the moment as well. Like, he's on 10 million. He's on £10 million a year. So
yeah. So Joe, to end this decisions, as it were, would you say that if you look back at the whole of Brendon Rodgers' tenure at the club, would you say it's been a success overall?
Massively, yeah, massively. And actually, I know I've been ranting about him because it's very raw in terms of how we're playing at the moment. Football fans are fickle, including myself.
It's a fickle game.
Everybody looks at the present, but unfortunately, it's the way football is now. If you don't move on quickly, you can get sucked into a relegation battle, and that's what we're looking at right now. We're bottom with a point from 6 games and playing diabolical football as well. But having said that, he's done a lot for the club, and he will go down as one of Leicester's best managers I've ever seen. In terms of the first 2 years, 2 fifth place finishes, and got us an FA Cup. Now, I am internally grateful, and he's been a great manager for us. I am not that short-sighted to be like, well, he needs to go now. I understand what's come before it, and he's done a terrific job for us, especially for a club of our size. But in this current climate and at this moment in time, we need to move on from Brendon. I think the players need a new injection. You'll see players play a different level of football if they get an injection of a different personality in the dressing room, and I think that's what we need. I honestly think that's what we need. People talk about signings, but we need somebody else to come in with fresh ideas, and Brendon Rodgers, unfortunately, hasn't got those ideas.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see what happens with that one. So moving on to one controversial decision, whether it should stay or go. We're now going to be talking about VAR, because it's been an awful week for VAR in the Premier League. It's been truly atrocious, in fact. There was the referees governing body, the PGMOL, has already accepted that VAR decisions were wrong in the games with Chelsea and Newcastle. So the Chelsea one, West Ham scored quite rightly. The referee didn't give it, and then VAR, only VAR, I should say, because when Mendy made the save, Jalbo just kind of went for the ball, but just went over Mendy, didn't touch him, and then it went to score the goal, which would have been a late equaliser for West Ham, and that got disallowed. What did you make of that one, Joe? Because it was just ridiculous, and that was a point which would have been really helpful for West Ham, wouldn't it? And I would be really peeved off if I was a West Ham fan right now.
Yeah, completely. I think West Ham are struggling. Not as much as other clubs. but they are struggling, and they will come good. But yeah, they needed a point, and I just feel there's been obviously VAR is very contentious anyway, because it really kind of highlights, you wonder who these referees and obviously VAR officials support, don't you, at times?
There's
Because
just no consistent. I don't blame VAR. It's the people using it who I blame.
for sure. I mean, we need VAR, for the offsides. We need them for the contentious decisions and the out and out black and white. That was a mistake. But I also think like Alan Shearer said at the weekend on Match of the Day, he said, we were told at the start of VAR that it would be minimum interference and maximum kind of clarity. We're 2 years, 3 years down the line of using it, and it's just shambolic.
It really is.
I just feel what doesn't help. I mean, decision for a Brighton goal at the weekend. Obviously, it didn't matter in the end, but it's the fact that they got called for offside. There was obviously they got, and bear in mind the person that was offside never actually touched the ball.
Or in fact was interfering with play. I don't think he was.
Yeah, well, I don't either. But also, I think one of my biggest bugbears with it as well is, not only did they get the wrong decisions, and they are getting the wrong decisions, it takes forever to get to the wrong decision.
Yeah, like this happened clearly at the weekend with Forest against Bournemouth. Forest had a penalty. Michael Oliver gave a penalty. It gave him 5 minutes for VAR to check it all through, for him to carry on and give the penalty again. It's just ridiculous.
Well, this is actually one of the games talking about Forest Bournemouth. I was actually one of the points where the referee stuck with his guns. So not only did it take the VAR 5 minutes to check whether he'd made the wrong decision, they checked it. He came over and went, "No, I'm sticking with my original decision." So it was just a massive waste, and I feel like, I think as much as I like VAR and everything like that, honestly, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, I think we should do this is something I would take from American sports. I would do something called challenges. You get maybe 2 challenges per game, 1 for each half, and you get a top. So if you haven't used your challenge in the first half, you still get 2. You get a top up, but you get 1 every half. So if you've used your challenge and it's a failure, then you can't use 1 again. So it's down to the referee then. I genuinely feel like it should be a thing, but I also think that not only that, there's been talk of ex-players coming into the VAR rooms, which I can see I can see pros and cons for both. I'm kind of on the fence with that, because I do feel like getting ex-pros in.
But
it's very,
ex-pros aren't referees.
Yeah, they're not, and also they have allegiances to different clubs. So I'm not sure how that would work. But also, not only that, I understand it from a point of view of, like, you're seeing it from the player's point of view, but I just feel like VAR in general at the moment is a complete mess.
Yeah, look, for example, have a look at the Liverpool-Everton game, because Van Dijk's challenge wasn't even checked by VAR, and 9 times out of 10, that's a red card every day of the week.
Yeah, well, it's a red card, but here's a question for you, right, Will? If that's Granit Xhaka for Arsenal, is it a red card?
I knew you were going to say that, yeah.
It's a red card, isn't it?
Yeah, he's been sent off for far less, to be fair.
He's walking down the tunnel, and that's it. And this is what frustrates fans like me and you, isn't it? Is you can't tell me there isn't bias. You can't tell me there isn't, because it's clear as day. It's getting more and more obvious that there's bias.
Even Frank Lampard said that in an interview after his game, when he said, "Oh, why didn't you think you got a decision?" And he said, "Because we're little old Everton."
Yeah.
And like, people, it's like hidden in plain sight. It's not even hidden. It's a massive sign, and everyone's just ignoring it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think obviously watching other social medias. I mean, again, there was a bit of a contentious goal ruled out in the Arsenal game as well. There was loads of them this weekend with the Man U.
Oh yeah.
Man U Arsenal, and obviously Martinelli put them 1-0 up where I thought he did, and then it went back for a foul against Eriksen, and a load of the Arsenal fans. And it is. I'm not trying to pick on Man United here, because I actually do think the original decision was a foul. So I think they got that one particularly right.
Yeah, I agree.
What I will say is, and it's just kind of what the fans were saying. This particular fan, he said that was an Old Trafford decision. Do you know what I mean? It was an Old Trafford decision in terms of, do you think that any other player in any other ground gets that decision? And I've got to be honest with you, I'm not saying it wasn't a foul. I think it was right. But do VAR pull that back for a team like Leicester? Do they pull it back for a team like Forest? Do they pull it back for a team like Bournemouth? Do they pull it back for a team like Burnley? Do they pull it back for a team like Huddersfield? No, they don't.
Yeah.
No, they don't. And this is the thing. I'm not saying it was wrong, but does it get looked at? Does it get looked at? If that's the other way around, and it's Man United against Bournemouth, and Bournemouth have a foul a Man United player, or the other way around, does that get looked at? No, I don't think it does, and I can say that with sort of 95% confidence, and that's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been too many questionable events with certain teams, hasn't there? Which makes us believe that it's not just off false evidence. It's just like week in, week out, we have the same conversation, don't we, Joe?
Yeah, we do, and it's getting. I mean, don't get me wrong, we like having kind of controversial decisions. It gives us stuff to talk about as podcasters and kind of people on social media looking at this stuff. But at the same time, it gets annoying because you don't want it to come down to the last day of the season and that a decision like that to cost you your place in the Premier League. You know,
exactly.
It's all of that stuff. Right, moving on. I hope you don't mind me taking over now, Will.
Yeah, of course.
Moving on. The reason I'm taking over is because I want your opinions on how you were kind of feeling. I know you were unable to go to the game this weekend because you had other commitments. But how were you feeling as you were kind of seeing that score come through? And have you seen the highlights and stuff of the game? And how are you feeling about the Bournemouth Forest game and kind of how you performed?
Well, speaking to my friends who were there and looking at everything online and things, it seems like we didn't play very well from the first half. Yes, we went 2-0 up in the first half and everyone was happy. Football, like we always say, it's a very fickle sport. Things can turn toxic in a blink of an eye, can't it? Last week, before the Tottenham, well, even after the Tottenham game, everyone was still really positive, really happy about Cooper, blah, blah, blah. A week later, we lose to Bournemouth, and people are calling for Cooper to go. People are saying, oh, why aren't you playing certain teams? The crowd's getting a bit etchy. This is a problem with home crowds. Sometimes it can work for you, and sometimes it can work against you, where when you make a few mistakes, the worst thing a crowd could do is start shouting at them, complaining. The crowd's there to support. Yeah, and then as soon as we went 2-1, I just knew. I was like, we've lost this. We've lost this, because there's been a trend where when we concede one, we seem to capitulate a little bit, and we need to have that mentality, because in the Premier League, like you know, Joe, we are going to concede lots of goals. That's just what the Premier League is. It's the best strikers in the world scoring against you. And things can change in a blink of an eye. So if you ask me how I'm feeling now, worse than before, but you still have to remain hopeful, you know. Hopefully the team can amalgamate together and move on to Leeds' next game of the season. So that's how I'm feeling right now. I'm kind of on the fence now. Before I was more positive I will stay up. Now I'm on the fence because Bournemouth are a team to get relegated, aren't they? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think just so our listeners are kind of aware of the situation. I think we had quite an interesting conversation off air, didn't we? Because I think actually, even though Leicester City are in diabolical condition at the moment, I think I'm still a lot more confident that we'll stay up than you are.
Yeah, because you've been in the Premier League for that. This is our first season in the Premier League.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
unknown territory for us, isn't it?
And like you said, it's Leicester have still got the infrastructure there of players that have been at this level for some time.
Yeah.
So and obviously you haven't got that. Obviously you've got players that have played Premier League football, but I think the signings you've made in the summer. I mean, it's fantastic you've made as many signings as you've had to. But I think especially with the first season and everything, it could be a bit of a hindrance in terms of the kind of gelling and stuff.
The only thing I would say is that Forest are one of the only team where the World Cup is going to be so helpful for the team to gel, because quite a few of the players are on international players, and it will just give them a month or so to gel the team. So hopefully go on the second half of the season.
Yeah, no, hopefully fingers crossed that happens for you, because believe it or not, I really want Forest to stay in the Premier League. Obviously, not at our expense, of course.
Yeah, yeah, that was my caveat as well.
But I think it's we'll see how you get on. But honestly, I did, as a neutral fan with Forest, I did kind of look at that game and think to myself, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's for me personally, and I think a lot of fans out there would have had Forest to win that, especially being at home with the crowd behind you. But even I know I've been to the City Ground. As you know, my dad's a Forest fan, and the crowd, if things aren't going your way, the crowd can turn very toxic very quickly at the City Ground. I know that. I mean,
yeah, sorry, Jay.
Nottingham Forest are a massive club, and obviously it's a big footballing city. It's I don't want to be kind of cliche here, but Nottingham Forest have very much been a sleeping giant down in the Championship. And I think
and League One
and League One, and I think fans, but you've got to understand what this season is about for Forest, and it is definitely just about, if you finish 17th,
survival. Yeah,
it's just survival. That's all it is. And if you can do that, then it's a win.
I 100% agree. So, one thing I would say is that still early doors, and a lot can change between now and the end of the season. So it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it, Jay?
Of course it is, mate. Of course it is. I'm grateful that it is a marathon and not a sprint. I tell you that.
Yeah. So let's move on to our predictions for next week, shall we, Jay?
Sure.
So we're going to do some quick fire scores. So first of all, I think this on the right page. We have Fulham against Chelsea.
Fulham against Chelsea. I'm gonna go 1-0 Chelsea.
Chelsea. I'm gonna go 1-1. Because I think
Fulham are good. Fulham are good.
Yeah, Fulham are good. First it's Bournemouth Brighton.
Bournemouth Brighton. I'm gonna go 3-0 Brighton.
I'm gonna go 3-0 as well, to be fair. Next is big game for you, Leicester versus Villa.
4-1 Villa.
Or at least you're being positive, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go 2-2. Because Leicester at home. Moving on to Liverpool Wolves. Wolves without a striker.
It's difficult because I think Liverpool have been shocking this season. I'm still gonna go. I'm gonna go for 2-1 Liverpool.
2-1. I'm gonna go 3-1. Actually, no, I'm gonna go 3-0. Actually, moving on to the next game, Southampton Brentford.
I'm gonna go Brentford 3-1.
I'm gonna go 1-1. Oh, this is a big game. Man City versus Spurs.
2-2.
Ooh. Man City dropping points again for the third time this season. Then I'm gonna go for Man City win. I'm gonna go 4-2. I hope Kane scores 2 goals for my fantasy football as well.
Yeah.
Moving on to Arsenal, Everton.
Arsenal 2-0.
West Ham, Newcastle.
Newcastle 2-1.
Well, I have to. You've gone for a lot of away wins this week, Joe. I'm gonna go 2-0. I'm gonna go 1-1. Crystal Palace, Manchester United.
Man United 1-0.
I think it'll be a close game, you know.
I
think after the game against Arsenal, we'll have the momentum, so I'm gonna go 2-0. And finally, we have Leeds versus Nottingham Forest. Leeds are at home.
I'm gonna go. Sorry, well, I'm gonna go 3-1 Leeds.
I'm gonna go 2-2 because we need the point. So those are our predictions. Let us know what you think the scores get the predictions or anything else we've spoken about, and let us know down below. So over to you, Joe.
All right, Joe asks, Will tells, and it's kind of in keeping with the theme a little bit, obviously with me kind of flip-flopping and sort of changing my mind on Brendon and being quite aggressive about it. Do you think fans, obviously being a Forest fan as well, do you think fans are very quick to turn on managers? And do you feel like that fans could do more in certain clubs to support the team rather than hindering the manager and the players? Because I feel like as much as I'm being very negative, and I said I would sack Brendon Rodgers tomorrow or today, I still want us to beat Villa at the weekend, and I still somehow want it to work out for Brendon Rodgers. I do, but is that going to happen? Do I think so? Absolutely not. But do you think fans need to be more supportive of the teams they support rather than being kind of negative? Effective?
Yeah. So there's really 2 parts of a question. First of all, I don't think Twitter to this. I think it's made it a whole lot more toxic because players and teams are online, they're on Twitter reading it, and if you're a young player, positive or not, you're going to be reading it, and it's going to affect you one way or another. So I think Twitter is not conducive to the whole thing because people end up arguing on there. It's just, and going to informative matches. Like I said before, football fans are thicker. If a player makes 2 little mistakes, sometimes the crowd will turn on them, and then it's like fight or flight. Some players just can't handle it, and then their performance is gonna dip even further. Say if you were Joe, I know we used to play wheelchair basketball together, and we do it sometimes as well. But say if you were playing, you make 2 mistakes, you already know you've made mistakes. You don't need the crowd booing at you and saying you're terrible and stuff, and you're in the middle of playing. How do you think that would affect you if you're playing?
Well, I was very much a confidence player anyway, so like even if I made those mistakes, I knew I'd be having a bad game. So if I genuinely don't think I could deal with the pressure. So
exactly, but that's why, like I said before, home advantage can be also a disadvantage because if a crowd get annoyed with a team, they're going to start booing. The worst thing I think fans can do is boo at half time because it's half time. What's booing going to do? The players already know that they've fluffed things up. For example, players aren't stupid, contrary to popular belief. They know if they're having a good game or not. They know if the team's having a good game or not. And I know they say, oh, they should be stronger, they're paid enough, blah, blah, blah. But they're still people at the end of the day. Joe, if you were paid £1 million, but you still really wanted to win, you still really want to win regardless of how much money you were on. You know what I mean, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
and it's their livelihoods at the end of the day, you know. So I would say that it can work for and against you. So that's my answer in this one.
Yeah, for sure, and I'd agree with a lot of what you've said there. I don't. I will say as well. I don't like feeling how I'm feeling now. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to want a manager to be sacked. Well, to be honest, do I want Brendon Rodgers to be sacked? And what I mean by that, I'm not contradicting what I said earlier. I don't want him to be sacked. I want him to be replaced. If that makes sense.
You have nothing against him as a person himself. It's just what he's doing.
I just feel like the club needs to move on now. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like he's done a terrific job for us. I'm very grateful for that. But I just feel like we're in a moment now where we need to make a decision. And
yeah,
I don't have the confidence that we'll go and win games anymore. It's kind of I'm looking online, I'm looking at the game, I'm watching the games, and I'm thinking every time the ball comes forward for the opposition, I'm like, we're going to concede here. Do you know what I mean? It's just not a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's not nice at all. And hopefully, let's bring it up a notch before we wrap up. I think we'll have to keep on staying positive, get behind your team, and come on Forest, and for you, Joe.
Come on, Leicester.
There you go. So thanks very much, guys, and let us know what you think down below, and I'll see you next time.